Sister to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Paul and Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows, protect the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Fun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow. Step into
So I forgot to get my Blue Sky post ready here, so I'm just finishing up that.
Yeah, no problem.
So, all right, we've got that done. So today we are joined by Kennedy Cooper, and they were on our show last week as part of a panel, and we got into a little discussion about what they do, and you run a school to teach children how to cook or something like that?
Yeah, so I don't run it, but I work with a program here called Kids Cook. It's been around for 25 years. And I haven't been with it that whole time by any means, because I was just a little kid back 25 years ago, or teenager or whatever. So I work with this program here doing digital media outreach and fundraising, and different kinds of development type stuff with the program. We are currently in a funding crisis because of the funding bill that Donald Trump has passed. So I just want to get that out of the way right away. We'll be talking about that a lot, I'm sure. But Kids Cook, we are kind of currently on life support, doing what we can. We work in schools all throughout the Albuquerque, New Mexico community. We've changed tens of thousands of lives here within the community. There's adults, that went through the program when they were kids, and there's even one person that works for the Kids Cook program that went through the program when she was a kid, that just raves about how this changed her life. And now here she is working for the program. Right. So this educational program is it's transformative, it's powerful, and it's really accessible. And a big part of that has been thanks to SNAP education funding, which reminded me, where's my water? Uh-oh. I'll figure that out in a second. A big part of that has been thanks to SNAP education funding, which came from the federal government and made a lot of this possible. SNAP education funding was 1% of SNAP total budget. The total budget of SNAP, 1% of it was SNAP education funding, which went to fund programs like this. This program I work for is extremely efficient. Our operating budget last year was $630,000, and that allowed us to be in 13 schools and to run multiple programs throughout the community outside the schoolwork. So, it's an extremely efficient program, and yet the Republicans have decided not efficient enough, I guess. These SNAP Ed programs that
I think maybe are some of the kids, what's the word? More pigmented than others?
Yeah, so I mean, there is that aspect, but beyond just that, I mean, this is SNAP Ed has been cut everywhere. So I'm here to talk about my program today. I can also talk about a couple other programs here in the community that I have experience with, have worked with in various capacities that, but everybody's community has a story like this right now, whether you know about it or not. And that's one of the big points I want to make today, is about just the fact that we're all losing incredible programs like this, and we all need to do something about it in our local spaces.
So, one thing that I wonder about, and want to see if you have any thoughts, I think that, just in terms of having a healthy lifestyle, probably the easiest and most important thing you can do is just cook your own food.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, I hate to agree with RFK Jr. on anything, but I do think he's right that super processed foods uh, aren't really even food anymore. They don't have nutritional value the same way that actual food does.
Yeah,
Um,
RFK Jr. has that funny quality to him where he says like 150 things a day and like 2 of them are correct, It's and it's not stuff that you normally hear government people say,
yeah.
so it's a little confusing when he says them because like, wait, hold on.
So I'm like, I try to reconcile, like, make America healthy again and eat healthy, and then, oh, but we're not going to give you any money for food, and we're going to make the price of food go up by deporting, millions of immigrants that are harvesting the food that is good for you.
Well, and it's completely ridiculous to say that we want to teach people to eat healthier food, to cook more food at home, and then to go do away with programs like the one that I work with, right? So again, in every community, there's programs like this that are being done away with because this is what SNAP education did. Right, like what do you think that education part means, right? It's like, so SNAP as a whole mostly goes to giving people, actual food assistance, quote unquote food stamps, right? As most people colloquially know them. And other programs like that, right? So like most of the money for SNAP goes to stuff like that. To directly giving people food. But then this little bit of the budget went to SNAP education. And the idea was, hey, if we get people to have a better relationship with food and health, then they require these programs less later.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like SNAP education prevents people from needing SNAP because they learn more about food younger and develop a healthier relationship with it. Right? And
can you talk more about what you mean by a healthy relationship with food? Like, one of the reasons that, like, what you were saying earlier, in the last show appealed to me is I just think as a child, learning to cook makes you comfortable with it. There was like one guy, one time when I was like 12, a friend of my parents called my mom. His wife was out of town, and he wanted her to tell him how to make a sandwich. Like, he didn't know how to make a sandwich.
Oh no.
And she was laughing as she was sitting there. You take 2 slices of bread. Okay, now spread the peanut butter on one side and spread the jelly on the other.
Have you ever looked at a sandwich? That's how you make one. And yet, no, but that's so true that a lot of it really comes down to just making people comfortable with food, comfortable in the kitchen, comfortable at the grocery store is a big one. A lot of people, and we're finding this is especially true with some of our current generations, like my generation, millennials, Gen Z, folks younger than me. Some of our current generations are a little freaked out at the grocery store. There's data to back this up. What
do you mean, like, what freaked out? How, like, that there's some predators going to come get them, or they just don't know how to choose what avocado?
They don't know how to choose what, and they get scared and they get confused and they come home with the wrong stuff, and they don't really come home with, like, the difference from, and I also learned to cook as a kid, and it was really transformative for me. And so the difference of, like, when you go to the grocery store and you're just kind of like whimsically shopping and you come home with like maybe like 1 meal's worth of food and you spend $80, like, and then like and then some random snacks are also in there and a few too many beverages, and but it's like you didn't actually come home with, like, you cook up a meal from that and then you go, it's like, okay, well, now I immediately have to go to the grocery store again, right? And it's like that is kind of like not the only phenomenon I'm describing, but I would say one of the major ones that, like, is being observed right now is, like, people, like, they go to the grocery store and they don't know exactly how to shop. They get a little intimidated while they're there. They don't know what's this, what's that, what is this ingredient, what is that ingredient, why would I choose this brand over that brand, why would I pick organic or not organic for this type of produce or that type of produce. These are just questions they don't have any answers for, right? And so you know, if you're feeling that way in the grocery store, again, you're more likely to come out of the grocery store with like inadequate groceries, having spent too much for too little, which is always a frustrating experience, right?
See,
Whereas,
this is something I never would have thought of as something beneficial to educating. My wife is always talking about like how schools don't do enough to teach real life skills. And like this to me is like a great example of that. Just how to shop for food is like something we should learn growing up.
it is. And so in Kids Cook, one of the things that we do is we have something we call the market, which is we have all the ingredients and all the utensils and stuff like that laid out on a table. And we give them a card with a picture and the name on it. We say, go find this at the market. And so we give them a little simulated experience of going to find an ingredient that they're unfamiliar with and getting used
What
to
is
that.
the age range for these kids?
So we generally work with pre-K through 5th grade for most of our programs, but we also work a little past that into older kids for certain things, but that's a little bit more specific programs, not as broad as
Okay.
like our pre-K through 5th grade is really where our emphasis is, because that's where you're going to make the most impact in a
Mhm.
lot of cases. Like we do a couple of programs that reach out to high schoolers in a couple of different respects, but by then it's like the high school kids, like they know if they like food or not, you know what I mean? Like, and if they've already decided that they don't like food, it's pretty hard to convince them at that age to change their mind. You're probably going to have to wait till adulthood and wait for them to decide to change their mind on their
Who
own at that
doesn't
point.
like food? How do you not like food? Anyway, I guess you like
You know
eating,
what
but
I
maybe you
mean
don't
though?
like
Like
eating.
everyone, I mean, there are people that truly have a completely antagonistic relationship to food, but for the most part, everyone likes food in some respect. But like, there's a lot of people that they aren't really excited to try new things. They are scared of the kitchen. They're scared of the grocery store. You know, these things that we're describing, right? That's
Mm,
what I mean, you know?
yeah, I
And
see
so
what
it's
you're saying.
like by high school, a lot of those attitudes are already set. So like we're really focusing on the ages where like the difference can still be made to the greatest degree. Like in those young age ranges, kids are still pretty open to you know, learning new ideas and like absorbing new information. And so uh that's been really successful. And like you'd be surprised, but like the pre-K kids are like really great. Like we love some of our youngest kids. Just like the enthusiasm that they bring to the program is so cool. And then to watch them, some of them, you know, go through the program for many years and then eventually graduate out of it at 5th grade, you know, quote unquote. And
Mhm.
like to watch them go through that whole journey. The kids that go through it for many years like that, they are radically changed at the end of all of the experiences that they have, because they've tried so many foods that they might have never tried otherwise. They've learned about where those foods come from. We tie exercise into the program. You know, so like they come out of it when you really put all these different pieces together, and there's more, you know, but when you really put all these different pieces together, they come out of it with this really well-rounded understanding of why they might want to, you know, be more excited about food. And then you hear these stories of like, our 5th grader cooks dinner for the whole household at least once a week, just demands to do it now, you know. And it's because they've gone through this program and developed this passion.
That's, I think, so like I always hear people say they don't know how to cook or they can't cook. And I just always think if you can read, you can cook. Like um it's like but I get what you're saying is it's like people have this mental hurdle that cooking is somehow like this challenge, and they look at these YouTube videos where people make these like perfect creations, and they're trained chefs and stuff like that, and they think if you're not able to do that, then you're not able to cook, versus
Right.
like mix ingredients and just start there. Like there are some things I think that are so easy to make. Like that you can make in five. Like you can make a pot of chili in 10 minutes that is so much better than store bought chili.
Yep.
and doesn't take like all you have to do is, like basically chop an onion and a bell pepper, maybe.
Yep.
Like the cooking part is actually very easy, but it's the mental hurdle that you have to get over, that, oh wow, I can do this. And then once you do that and you start learning how foods work together, and you start falling in love with the idea of, like when you're chopping a bell pepper, I think that's one of the greatest smells in the world, is just a freshly
It's
chopped
not
bell
for
pepper.
everyone, but I love it too. Yeah.
you know and you start looking at like the vibrancy of the colors and different
Mhm.
foods and how they mix together. And I always feel like, like cooking is the one thing that combines all your senses, like the sizzling of a saute, or the, like it to me, it's such a all-encompassing experience. But I realize that's because when I was a kid, my mom taught me how to make her red beans and rice, so I would always know, because that was my favorite food. And that's where I started falling in love with food and started realizing that cooking is not hard. And then for a while, my dad, my mom was a reporter,
Mhm.
and then she got promoted. She was the night editor for our newspaper,
Oh
and
wow.
so she worked nights. And she won a Pulitzer Prize, by the way. But
It's really cool.
she would be working at night, and so my dad would come home from work. He would make dinner for all of us, and then he would take dinner to my mom, who was at work. And so he would started getting into all this gourmet cooking and stuff. But that also taught me that cooking is not just about, it's not women's work. To me, I grew up thinking it was normal for both the dad and the mom to cook. And so
Yeah.
never had any kind of like, oh, I can't cook, I'm a boy, kind of thing going on. So I think it's I think there's also like this there are some men that, like, especially, like these MAGA men that, are like all alpha and whatever. And think that, oh, don't tell me you're a woman unless you're gonna cook for me, and
Right.
so does I'm just thinking that there's probably a natural, like, you're not teaching people that it's okay to cook if you're a boy, but there's just the general notion of be comfortable with food takes away that cultural stereotype all by itself. But how does that work out? Do you have like different genders in your cooking classes, or?
Yeah. So, first of all, a lot of our classes, like I mentioned, they're just in the schools. And so, if somebody's classroom signs up, then that whole classroom comes. So it's just
Ah,
going to be a mix, right?
so
Like
the kids don't sign up, the
it's
classroom
not
signs
going to be 40 girls,
up. Uh-huh.
right?
So it's
It's
not
going
like
to
an elective or something. It's
yeah, it's not, well, it's the way it works is that the teachers have to choose to do it.
mhm.
And most teachers will. Occasionally we have a teacher that doesn't want to participate for their classroom, which is always a little strange. And we always try to overcome that hurdle if we can. But the teachers have to choose to do it. But if they choose to do it, then they bring a whole class. That's it. You know what I mean? It's not, the kids don't pick and choose. Another cool thing about how this program works too, that I think helps with the gender conversation a little bit, is that we encourage parent volunteers to come in, and we get a very nice mix of genders with the parent volunteers in terms of like, men, women, and some, trans folks a little outside the spectrum as well. And so I think like seeing, somebody's dad get in there and wash some dishes or chop some lettuce with the whole group like that, kind of just, you don't really have to discuss it that much usually, although we do when occasionally kids will say something like, because they've heard something from a
Mhm.
parent or an uncle or a cousin or a brother. Occasionally kids will say something problematic about gender and food, but mostly it's like just that visible example of like, hey, look at Jeremy's dad washing some dishes right now. Like that just clicks in a lot of kids' minds just seeing it.
I think that really makes a difference. Is just seeing. I think if you're a kid and you see your future self doing something, it changes a lot.
It does.
Like watching my dad cook. Just I never had this conscious thought. Oh, boys can cook. It was more subliminal. Like just I never had the thought that boys shouldn't cook because I saw my dad cooking more
Yeah.
than the other way around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think like this is one of the things we've done okay in my lifetime as a society I'm pushing back on, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think like I actually kind of think there's this whole aspect of the misplaced like white MAGA male rage that is tied into like that feeling that there should be a woman taking care of me so I can focus on my career like my grandpa did. And like it's not entirely ununderstandable how someone could get to that train of thought. It's just a tragic train of thought that we need to get them out of if we can, and if we can't, then they probably can't participate in regular society. But which is why they're trying to destroy regular society, of course. But that I think that if the more that we can do to dispel that idea that cooking belongs to a certain category of people, the better. But it's all tied into, I know we want to keep this more of a cooking episode, and I can always come back for a gender specific episode, but for one quick little gender soapbox, all this stuff kind of ties together in terms of like the trans sports ban, who's allowed in the kitchen. These things are all related. And when you defend the right to transgender healthcare, you're always defending your own rights. And I just want to always remind people of that, because it ties into these topics today too. And although, again, this isn't the focus today, transgender rights are constantly under attack right now. So there's no bad time to mention that, again, these rights are all of our rights, and these things are all tied together. And so if you want to feel like there's more gender equality in all these different areas of your life, then defend trans people.
I am firmly of the belief that nobody has any more rights than the person who has the least rights. Because that's true.
Yeah.
My younger brother one time, I have a nephew, he's cis male. I have another nephew that's a transgender male, but that's my older brother's son. My younger brother has a son that's a cis male, but he was at Target when the kid was like 5, and the kid wanted a Barbie doll. His son wanted a Barbie doll. So he grabs the Barbie doll and drops it in the cart, and this, one of these alpha male types is like, "Why are you getting your son a Barbie doll?" And my brother says, "Because he wants a Barbie doll."
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, it's like, we, don't get, and he's like, he's gonna grow up gay or something. And like, my brother's like, well, if he's gay, he's already gay. I mean, but he wasn't all concerned about it. And I think I think with all of these, like gender normative stuff, it's like it's a crock. It's just like, you are who you are. You are who your brain tells you are, not who your genitals tell you you are. And I don't understand how people can like think any other way. It's like, you're a cisgender male and you're a straight male or whatever. And I get that, but that's because of your brain. Your brain is telling you that. You're telling,
and if you don't want
to disagree with what their brain says.
If you don't want to play with Barbie dolls because you feel like a cis male, that's okay. Don't tell anybody else what to do. And that's like why, like, fundamentally defending trans rights are so important, is because, do you want to be told what to do with your life? Because they're gonna tell you how you can live next. You know, do you want to have control over your medical decisions? Because they're going to make your medical decisions for you next. Anyway, I don't want to get too grim. Let's keep it on food. But
Yeah, let's I'm trying to get, so you teach them how to shop for food, which
mhm.
is something do you like teach them like how to tell when to pick, when you know, which avocados to grab or which tomatoes to grab? Do you get into that kind of detail, or
we
is
do
it just like you want to make guacamole? Here's, you know, where are the avocados? Because I mean, I know you're dealing with a young range.
we keep it more on the basic side. As they get a little older, we'll kind of sneak in a little bit of more sophisticated stuff, make some of the problems a little more challenging and stuff like that, you know. And like we were kind of getting into earlier, you know, this covers so many different areas of, you know, education. You know, when kids are doing this kind of problem solving, well, first of all, critical problem solving, right? Math, reading,
Mm,
geography is sometimes involved because we'll be asking them, where do these ingredients come from? Where did this recipe come from? Right? Like there's all kinds of stuff that gets involved. And when you really go down the list, it's like this encompasses all the different subjects of school in a small way.
that's a great
Um,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's something that's so cool about cooking, and not just from the kids' perspective. But this is something I personally love about cooking. Is like I love. Do you ever get a cookbook that has like a really extensive section at the beginning about like tools and ingredients from the
Mhm.
culture that it's from
Yeah.
and stuff like that? Like I love that. I want to absorb all that information.
The high school I went to in 10th and 11th grade, I was living in Liberia. My dad was a diplomat, and there were 31 nationalities in my high school.
Mm,
And we had a day called International Day. It was an American cooperative school. And so
yeah.
like all the different kids of all the different ambassadors that were there, and you know, like the wealthier people and their kids would all go there. It was like the second best school on the continent of Africa. And so there were like 31 nationalities, and we had this International Day, it was called. And on International Day, uh students would bring their like foods that represented their home country, and you'd walk around and you'd get to taste test, you know, you get to sample all these different foods from all these different places. And it's one of the things that kind of inspired my love for food, because there were
Hmm.
just like there's so many different kinds of delicious that so
Yeah.
many people never get to experience because they don't open their minds to, oh, there's different kinds of food. And then like during the pandemic for a while, I was doing this just thing where I would study how to make a different comfort food from a different country. Every Saturday I would make that food, like, and I would like watch, you know, several YouTube
Yeah.
videos
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
people from that country and kind of figure out how to make that food. I think that, yeah, I think it's a great way to understand like the world, because usually the comfort foods, there's stories tied to them, that and history and culture and all kinds of things.
Yeah, you know, I also, you know, just grew up cooking like you did. But for me, it was a little bit more of a necessity because I grew up, you know, my parents were very poor and kind of like working to elevate their status a lot when I was young, which meant they were home a lot, right? Like they were working to like get into more of a middle class position. And so my mom taught me, the very first thing she taught me was how to bake a chicken over
Hmm.
roasted potatoes in the oven. Very
Hmm.
simple, you know. You just chop potatoes, you put them in a pan, you put a chicken on top of it, you season it, and you go to town. Basically, very
So
simple.
how old were you when that happened?
Oh, I was probably like 9.
Well, most kids are like, if they're learning anything at all, they're making boxed mac and cheese at that age, not
Yeah,
not
but it
roasting chicken and vegetables.
and yet the roasted chicken and vegetables is not really harder than making boxed
It's
mac and
not.
cheese. Like that's the and I loved what you said earlier. I'm actually glad I remembered this just now. I loved what you said earlier about like, you know, it only takes 10 minutes sometimes to make these meals instead of, you know, buying them or whatever. Did you ever watch I forget the exact, but the worst America's Worst Chefs or whatever Amber L show was called?
I have not, but
or Worst Home Cooks, I think, or something. But it's a show where like it's like MasterChef, but instead of like choosing like people that like seem to have a talent for cooking already, they choose people that are terrible at cooking, like awful at cooking. You can't submit yourself. You have to be nominated by family members. It's a whole thing, like, and so it's a really cool show because they take these people through, and by the end of it, like they're not on the level of like a contestant on a top cooking show, but they're cooking dishes that are comparable to that stuff. Like they maybe couldn't cook like the range or like things like that of somebody who's like a contestant on like a top cooking show, right? But like they are cooking like sophisticated dishes by the end of the competition, whoever
wow.
has made it to the end. Starting with just basic stuff. But one of the coolest challenges they ever did on that show that like this stuck in my brain in a powerful way because it was so inspiring was so a lot of reality television shows, while you're on the show as a contestant, you stay in some like group housing thing that the studio pays for, right?
Mhm.
And so this show is like that, right? So they're all staying in like some side by side townhouses during the production of the show. And what Anne Burrell had discovered, and rest in peace, God, I miss her already. What Anne Burrell had discovered was that these contestants were ordering in food when they weren't doing the show stuff. They were like ordering Chinese food.
Oh, wow.
And so she came over there and she was like, all right, we're going to order Chinese food and we're going to make the same dishes right here in the kitchen. And we're going to only start with a couple of advantages like pre-made rice, which like you should always have pre-made rice
I
in your
mean,
fridge. What are you talking about? You know, you know,
it's not like rice is a hard thing to make anyway.
um, so, but it was like basically like we're gonna start with like pre-made rice and a couple other small advantages, but basically we're otherwise starting from scratch, and we're gonna see, can we beat the delivery guys?
Wow.
These folks that they delivered from were known for their like fast delivery time, like it was like their thing, So it's like they had a very strict time clock of like, I forget what it was, so like 21 minutes or something exactly from the time they placed the phone call to cook these dishes, and they cooked them faster than the delivery guy got there.
Wow.
Like,
That's pretty good.
and these were people that, again, they're being trained to cook from nothing over the course of several weeks. So like they were not naturally good at this at all. They're just being trained to do it, And so I've always seen that as really inspiring. There's a lot of great meals that you can make for yourself in under 20 minutes. And you might think there's no way I can't cook something from scratch for myself in under 20 minutes. And it's because you don't have the practice yet. Like you
Yeah.
just need to start practicing the skills and the flow. A lot of it is the flow. That's something else that we help to teach the kids in this program, is that sense of flow in the kitchen. What do you start first? What do you start later? How do you get these things done in the right order so that we can serve everything around the same time and we can all eat at the same time? Because nobody gets to eat and kids cook until we all have a plate in front of us.
Like one thing I think that a lot of people are intimidated by and kind of goes along with what you're saying is baking your own bread.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, especially if you just have like what's the word, the mixer thing, like like a decent hand mixer type thing.
Yeah.
That where you can just kind of put the ingredient, like you basically just put the ingredients in the bowl, turn the mixer on, wait 10 minutes, turn the mixer off, cover it up, wait a couple hours for it to proof, and then throw it in the oven. It's like baking your own bread is so much easier than people think it is. And of course, as you get familiar with the process, you start learning how the dough is supposed to look, whether or not you should add a little more flour, a little
Right.
more water, well, whether your proofing was right. But it's like you're just following a basic recipe, you're going to be able to get a very edible bread that's far tastier than anything that you're going to buy in the store. and far healthier, and then like I got a mill. It takes 3 minutes to mill your own wheat, and like fresh milled wheat is 1,000 times healthier than store-bought flour. So I like the idea of what you're trying to say, or what you are saying, not trying to say, successfully saying, is that it's a process, and it's like as you get comfortable with it, you learn, and you get quicker at it. It gets simpler. But also I think that I've within the last 6 months I started getting into dehydrated food
Yeah, that's really neat.
and making like backpack meal type things, because there are times I have long COVID. There are times when I just don't have the energy to cook.
Yeah.
And I found I was like ordering a lot of DoorDash, and when you order DoorDash, you get food that has like even most restaurants have way too much sodium in the food, and I have high blood pressure. So even if like you're eating food that was cooked there, but it's still not as good for you, especially if you end up ordering McDonald's and whatnot. But
well,
anyway,
sodium is such a problem.
These backpack meals where all I have to do is add hot water and wait 10 minutes.
Right. And yeah, I just want to especially shout out that sodium is such a problem for Americans because we're chronically dehydrated. And folks, if you feel thirsty, it's already too late. You need to be drinking water before you feel thirsty. And yes, I said water, not something else. Sorry. Other drinks are there to supplement your water intake. They can't replace it. You can, eat foods that help with your water intake, especially in the summertime. We all love stuff like watermelon, right? But anyway, I just have to, I know that, 70% of Americans are chronically dehydrated, including probably a lot of people that watch this show, unfortunately. So I just really want to shout out, folks, drink more water. You will feel better. You will feel so much better. You will thank yourself.
So,
but go ahead.
I think because this kind of connects, and it's one of the things I wanted to cover, is something called bioavailability.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that means?
So the simplest way to understand bioavailability is like how it says like you need X amount of milligrams of vitamin C per day, right?
Right.
Like, you need 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a day or something like, I forget. I'm not good at these kind of numbers off the top of my head, but it's something like that. And so you need some amount of vitamin C per day. And so then you look at something that you're about to consume, and you look at the package, and it says it has 100% of your daily amount of vitamin C in it. You go, okay, great. You eat that, and you assume that you've gotten all your vitamin C for the day. But where the concept of bioavailability comes in is, was that vitamin C ready for your body, and was your body ready for it, basically?
So it's like, how much of that vitamin C did your body actually assimilate?
Right. And so like I have Crohn's disease. I have an invisible disability. And so my body doesn't always absorb nutrients the way that it should. So I'm hyper aware of this problem. And the fact that sometimes I have to eat a little extra of things in certain categories to make sure I actually got enough. Things like iron, for instance. Like I sometimes, if I'm having a health episode, I probably need to eat 110, 120, 130% of a daily's value worth of iron to make sure my body actually absorbed it all, because I'm not going to absorb all of it because of bioavailability issues. And so, so it's like, what is the form of the nutrient in as it enters your body? And then what is the state of your body? And is it able to absorb that form of it at this time, are kind of the questions there. And that sounds like a lot, and it's a little intimidating, but basically what the thing to take away from it for the average, I want to say user, like user of your body. Sorry, sometimes I'm a little techie. But for the average person at home, I think the thing to take away from this is that, like, just because something says that it has the nutritive value that you're looking for, like you may still need to try to get that nutrition in other ways, depending on the situation. And it's something to be aware of. Like if you feel like sluggish, you're getting tests done and some of your vitamin levels are low, even though you think you're eating the right things, maybe you need to cook them differently. Maybe you need to eat slightly different sources of those things. Maybe you need to drink some of them instead of eating them. Maybe you need to, there's like these different things that you can do to kind of change up your absorption method, which can have an effect in these instances where bioavailability is an issue and is affecting you.
And I think also is like there's like foods are meant to be eaten like whole, like a lot of the foods that you eat contain the like micronutrients and stuff that help you digest the foods that you're eating. So like whole wheat, for example, which obviously you don't play around with much. So we'll go to brown rice versus white rice.
No, I'm not celiac. I have Crohn's disease. So it's
Crohn's disease. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
so,
it's basically
you take
in the
wheat,
IBS family.
like whole wheat with or even fresh milk is even better because it starts with but you have like your probiotics, your microbiota, or your prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics, right? And so then your prebiotics are things that your probiotics eat, and then your probiotics leave behind the postbiotics, which help you like heal your gut and stuff like that, and make it easier to digest the next round of food that comes along. But it's like this whole, and this is something I've been learning about more recently, but like there's this whole ecosystem in your gut that helps you digest food, and you need to maintain that whole ecosystem. And the way to do it is not through just like taking pills. Like, you can go out and buy all these probiotics that are super expensive. But if you just make homemade kefir, which is super easy to make, like all you have to do is pour milk in a jar. Like that's how hard it is to make your own kefir. And leave it out. Like, see, one time where you're allowed to leave your milk out is if you're making kefir.
Right.
But it's like did you know this? 1 8-ounce glass of kefir has more strains of probiotics and more actual probiotics by like tenfold than the most expensive probiotics that you can buy in a capsule. And not only that, it's actually going to assimilate into your stomach better, and it's going to, and then the probiotics, because you have those, it helps you digest your food better, and it helps the postbiotics, which again like heal your gut lining and stuff like that. Since I had diarrhea problems. Sorry to be graphic, but
that's okay.
For like 30 years. So I started, like just drinking homemade kefir and fermenting my own veggies and stuff like that, and they all went away. And it's like I had like multiple colonoscopies and endoscopies, and no doctor could figure out what it was. And then I just figured out, just eating food, that's the problem. And I feel like sometimes we try so hard just as humankind to conquer our environment that we forget that we come from an environment. And I don't want to get, I think sometimes people get spiritual about this kind of stuff, but like however it is, we are, whether we're designed or created or evolved or whatever, our system was developed in a way to eat food, not to eat food that has been stripped of its nutrients and then replaced artificially.
Yeah. Something that we do believe in Kids Cook is like, we don't really do food shaming. We just do positive encouragement. And so like, I want everybody out there to get enough calories today, even if some of those calories are unideal. I'm eating some candy while we talk. I'm not going to lie. I eat a lot of healthy stuff. I do eat some candy too. And especially I find sometimes when I'm doing shows like this, I just like to compulsively eat candy. It's just a thing. But so I want everybody out there, like if you're dealing with food aversions, antagonistic food problems, I know a lot of folks are. I just want to encourage you to, first of all, just get the calories however you can. But every day is a chance to make a small improvement. And I think that's something that people forget a lot, not just in this conversation, but in lots of self-improvement conversations.
Yeah.
But this is definitely one of them where, it can be easy to think like you either it's all or nothing. You either are eating junk food all day and, microwaving your dinners, or you're, a 5-star chef preparing everything from scratch. No, I'm here to tell you that it's exactly in the middle. And that's why I'm admitting to you right now, I'm just eating some junk food here while we talk, because I eat junk food too. We all do, and it's okay. We don't need to punish ourselves over occasionally having a little junk food. But the question is, how much processed food are you eating versus everything else?
I love it. Yeah.
And again, just like that idea of like, how can we make small improvements every day? Like, I eat less candy than I did 10 years ago. And I ate less candy 10 years ago than I did 10 years before that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so rather than looking for like perfection from yourself, like, just looking for like small improvements, rather than be like, I'm going to cook dinner every night of the week. Now, I think people sometimes kind of like get themselves worked up like this, especially like New Year's resolutions. This is a time where people say foolish things like this. I'm going to cook myself dinner every night of the week this year. And you're like,
and then the first night that you don't, then you just revert back to DoorDash every night.
Right. You're when you give yourself an ultimatum like that, you probably don't realize it, because most people aren't doing this on purpose, of course, but you're giving yourself permission to quit.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, that first night that you don't do it, well, I guess I blew it. No, well, that one's out the window. Whereas if you made a more realistic New Year's resolution that was like, I'm going to cook dinner for myself at least one night a week, and I'm going to try to cook dinner for myself more nights per week as the year goes on to the best of my ability. That would be a realistic goal that you don't, anyway, go ahead.
I'm on what I call a food diet, where I don't eliminate anything, but I've just gradually, and this is over like a 2-year period, where I've lost 50 pounds of just trying to eat real food. Like, I don't eliminate anything. There are times when I'll go into my little DoorDash, moments or weeks, but I just try to eat real food as much as possible, like things that I cooked myself or I prepared myself. I've tried going through a bunch of scenarios to make it easier, to where like there's something I call human entropy, where you're always going to do what is the easiest and laziest thing to do. And so I've been trying to develop ways where it's easier to eat food I cook myself than to order DoorDash, which goes back to the story you were telling earlier about the cooking show. Like, if we can get the food faster and easier by being lazy, but then by Job, that's the way I'm going to do. It's not about the money. It's about the easiness.
And again, a lot of this ties back to like, how do you shop? What's in your fridge right now? And learning to really listen to your body. I bet this is something maybe you're experiencing right now as you're on your journey with eating more sort of real food, whole foods type of stuff. Is like, at first there's these voices that are really loud that you might mistake for your body talking, but that's really more of like your mind, like the chemical pathways in your mind talking, saying like, I want candy, I want, but if you actually listen to your body, like, what is your body craving? And this is something where, again, like being comfortable at the grocery store can help you, because if you understand how to listen to your body cravings when you're at the store, or like you just understand how to listen to those cravings in general, then you can shop better. And you can have more of the things around the house that naturally appeal to like the things that your body craves regularly. And that will encourage you to make more food at home. So for instance, for me, like, there's just like some different handfuls of stuff I always try to keep in the house. For example, there's this one particular brand of black garlic ramen I always have packets of in the house, because I just know if I have that I'm really likely to like take that, stir fry some bok choy and mushrooms and get a little meal going, you know. That's just one of my like go-tos. I always have sun-dried tomatoes and capers in the house, because there's a few different meals I like to make with those sorts of elements, and they never go bad, really. I always have like just certain things in the house like that are just like appeal to my personal body a lot. Like sun-dried tomatoes definitely appeal to me. That oily richness, the
How
vitamins.
could anybody not like sun-dried tomatoes unless they're allergic to tomatoes? That's
Yeah, if you're allergic to tomatoes, of course, but otherwise.
But that's deliciousness right there. Just
and that's the sort of thing that I can keep like, you know, I have like 2 to 4 jars of sun-dried tomatoes in my house at any given time, because they never really go bad. And so it's just something that anytime my body's kind of craving some of that sort of thing, I can just pull that out, add it to something. Especially like I love it in like salad, pasta salad, various pasta dishes, lots of stuff, you know. So it's just tons of ways to use them. I could think of 30 recipes that have sun-dried tomatoes in them if I tried, probably, right? So
you know, like you were mentioning ramen, I went out and I bought some organic mixed like corn, peas, and carrots, and I dried that all up, and then I took them and vacuum sealed them in little bags, and then I have some ramen that is like a healthier version of ramen noodles, and then I just get some chicken bone broth, heat that up, throw in the ramen, throw in the veggies, and then it's like, you know, those instant cup of soups. Like I used to love those instant cup of soup things, and it's basically one of those things, except it's doesn't have anywhere near the sodium,
right,
and it has actual nutritional value and stuff like that. So I think like a lot of it is, it's not about work, but like you're saying, it's about shopping and getting the right stuff and just thinking ahead. Like there's going to be a day where I don't feel like cooking. So how can I eat healthy on a day I either don't have the energy or don't have the time and just don't want to cook? I'm just going to be lazy. What can I so like one thing I do, I always make more than I'm going to eat.
Yep.
And then I either dry or freeze what I don't eat. And then it's easy when I feel lazy to just have a good meal.
Yeah, I do that a lot as well. It's very, you know, just not like every single meal I cook, but I would say like every like around like every other or every third meal I cook, I'll just cook like I'm cooking for 10, you know. and then that's like something for the next few days, or even more. Like when I fire up my barbecue grill, like I feel like a lot of people you know, they'll like fire up the barbecue grill for like 3 steaks. If I fire up my barbecue grill, I'm probably about to grill like 20 pounds of meat or something like ridiculous, and then just like freeze some, you know, put some, you know, put some in different kinds of storage methods and stuff. I've got a vacuum sealer, you know, and I think like a lot of people think of tools like that as intimidating or expensive. They're not that expensive, and these are really practical. I want to actually try.
They're actually cost effective. If you think, like a vacuum sealer is like $25, $30, and think about how much produce you throw away. And it doesn't, you know, it's like if you have a dehydrator and a vacuum sealer, like you can dehydrate something, and a dehydrator, you can get a decent dehydrator for $75. And, you know, like you can keep food for like 2-3 years on the shelf. You don't even have to fill your freezer if it you know, like for veggies and stuff like that. Which if you're going to throw away $75 worth of produce over, you know, the next 2 years, it's totally worth buying a dehydrator, because like
100%,
you know, everybody's going to throw away $75 worth of produce over the next 2 years,
right? So you know, with that in mind, like I think like sometimes people think of this stuff as a little abstractly not connected to some of the other political things that they care about. And so I want to kind of like demonstrate a little bit how like this is connected to so many of the things that you care about. Okay, first of all, on just a really basic level, we're protesting more. You know, it's another Trump administration. That means people are out on the streets. It's even worse than last time. So we're out in the streets in even bigger numbers than last time. Some of the biggest protests movements of this country are happening right now. And of course, they're being poorly reported on. But like, people are out there. I know, you know, there's groups out there that are protesting, you know, like 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week in some cities right now because they just feel like they have to. You know what those protesters need? They need food. They need food that is easy to eat. They need food that is been safely prepared and is maybe highly preserved, like dehydrated food or things that we've been talking about, right? Like they need these things on the front lines to keep going out there. And if you are the kind of person, maybe you can't be on the front lines all the time. I used to be a big time frontliner when I was young. Now my health doesn't support it. I can only go out sometimes and I have to kind of pick and choose. But what I can do is I can make meals and send them to the protest. And that is something that
What
I
a
have
great
done.
guy. That's something I never thought of, but I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
The way to support a protest when you can't protest. Because I think people are like, you know, I can't protest. What can I do? What a great idea.
Yeah, what you can do is make a huge amount of low perishability food and send it to the protest. You could make a ton of chocolate chip peanut butter bars or something like that that are, you know, dense with calories and don't go bad fast and can sit out in the sun for a couple hours and won't make anybody sick, right? You know, you always want to be thinking about food safety when you think about things like this. So don't send along something with a thick buttercream icing that is going to spoil right away in the sun, or something of that nature, right? You know, but like beef jerky, right? You got a food dehydrator, or mushroom jerky if you prefer, you know, to make something that's accessible to the non-meat eating comrades, right? Like, you know, you can slice up king oyster mushrooms or something along those lines, a nice big meaty mushroom like that. Marinate, throw in the dehydrator. Now you've got a highly preserved snack. This is something that really is not going to go bad, you know, regardless of how long it's in someone's backpack, right? If you have the ability to do something like this for a protest, like people don't always think of this stuff, but this is part of how, like, for instance, like the Standing Rock water protest was able to go on for so long was people sending them food.
Wow. I think it was Ulysses Grant who said that wars are won. Oh, what's the word? But like, basically, that wars aren't won on the battlefront. They're won by the not the infrastructure, something, you know, like by the support system behind the army.
Right.
Like that's where the real wars are won and lost is in the supply chains and the food and the care that goes to support the warriors more than the warriors winning the battles.
Right. And like, I know, like Awkward, for instance, is a general strike supporter and understands what would really need to go into that. And it's like, you know, if we ever really want to have a general strike, we need to have a battalion of kitchens just pumping food out for the strikers. Like, you know, if we ever, like, some of these big political actions that we might imagine wanting to try to take in this country, they're going to rely on food. If somebody goes without 3 meals, they tend to lose their morals. This is a proven fact. You tend to start shedding morals pretty quickly after 3 meals and start wondering, what can I do to eat? Which, by the way, makes hunger strikes even more impressive, because the people doing hunger strikes are pushing through an extreme biological imperative that is telling them your morals don't matter, go eat. And they're telling their body, nope, I've prepped myself for this, which is really
That's
impressive. So always, anytime anyone is in a hunger strike, any kind of a hunger strike for a good cause, always be in solidarity with those folks.
so you
Um,
don't do a hunger strike unless you really mean it.
you have to really mean it, because again, after 3, if you skip 3 meals, you tend to start shedding morals quickly in pursuit of a meal. Um, so what does that mean for our movements? It means that all of our beautiful ideals are going to fall away if we can't feed the people on the front lines a certain number of meals. That if the people on the front lines start skipping meals, they're more likely to go, wait, is this even worth it? And to be honest, can you blame them if they're hungry? You know, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I think like everyone should be able to see why that is so intrinsically human and natural and understandable. How do you feel when you're hungry? You know, when I'm hungry, I
I
can
think
be
I get
pretty
hangry.
miserable.
I tend to do this thing where like I tend to hyper focus on a thing and forget to eat.
Yep.
And so then like I'll go 12 hours without eating, and my wife will come in and she'll ask me about something, and then I'll blow up at her, and then she's like, "When's the last time you ate?" And I'm like, 12 hours ago. And she's like, "I think you need to eat."
Yeah. It's not easy to go without food for a long period of time. It's like you say, if you really like sit there and hyper focus for a whole day, and I've done that where I've hyper focused for like a whole day on a project and really not eaten, and then it's like you're not in good shape at the end of that. And you're definitely not yourself anymore. You're definitely not able to uphold your best values in those moments usually. And so if we want to accomplish some of the big political change we're hoping for in this country, we have to have food be an important part of everything that we're doing. And with the loss of these critical food programs around the country, it's going to be all the more important that we just step up and create community-oriented solutions, because the food itself isn't going away.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, it is, but that's a different thing.
But yeah, it is, but that's a different thing. But in terms of like cutting SNAP doesn't cause there to be less food on shelves directly.
Right.
Exactly. It kind of will in the long term, maybe, but that's
well, I'm referring to deporting all the immigrants.
Oh no, I know that too. Yeah. No, I figured you were referring to stuff, yeah. But just in terms of the like, you know, will cutting SNAP take food off of shelves a little bit over the long run, but for the most part, the food will be on the shelves still. There will still be restaurants with the same problem of they've got food they've got to get rid of that's spoiling and stuff like that. This is where the food comes from for a lot of like, especially like food donation program, not so much for like Kids Cook, but for like food donation programs, which I also wanted to talk about today. You know, I've had the opportunity to do a little tiny bit of work I work with an organization called the Sprouting Kitchen, and so through that I've worked with this group called the Rio Grande Food Project here in Albuquerque. So the Sprouting Kitchen teaches more so adult cooking, and at the Rio Grande Food Project we're teaching classes that are for people that are receiving like food boxes, and we're teaching things that like are involve ingredients that they're going to be receiving and things like that, right? So it's a really cool program. A lot of that stuff's going away, and Rio Grande Food Project isn't going to close immediately, but they are going to have to reduce the amount of work that they're doing. It's not that the food that they're picking up went away, it's that there's less hours, less people, right? Like, but that food is still out there. So, you know, there's going to be opportunities to bring your community together to gather and distribute food. And you're going to have to do this through, you know, more clandestine channels, perhaps at times. You know, we're not going to be able to do this through food banks as much without the funding, right? But the food is still out there. This is the number one thing I want to emphasize to everyone today. The food is still out there. So let's, or one of the number one things at least, but, you know, so let's all be really aware of that fact that like we can still be providing food assistance to our communities, even if we can't do it in such a formal way as a food bank provides. And it's better to have the formality. Don't get me wrong. It's better to have the system. The system improves a lot of things, but the food is still out there. Let's feed our neighbors.
So, you know, when it comes to food banks and stuff, and I I 100% appreciate food banks. So I don't want this to be taken as a negative, but a lot of the food you get from the food banks is not like the healthiest foods because it's super processed and made to like last forever on the shelf. That's why it ends up getting donated, but then people that are eating that food are not getting the healthiest food. And a lot of times, like I hear people like there'll be people that are, you know, like poor and overweight, and then people will be like, well, it doesn't look like you're missing out on any food. And it's like you're not missing out on, she's not missing out on calories, but she's missing out on nutrition. And you're
Right.
confusing weight with health. And you know, so I just kind of want to emphasize, don't just look at the food that's sitting in your pantry. Look at the food that's sitting in your refrigerator when you're talking about donating.
100%. And what's so cool about the Rio Grande Food Project, to give them just a little bit more of a shout out because I love them, is that they have a community garden directly attached to the pantry. So some of the food that you get comes right out of the garden. They give community members the opportunity to pick some of it themselves, you know, really understand where the food comes from and stuff like that. And so, yeah, because a lot of the donations, you just get what you get when you take food donations, right? And so if the big box store gives you, you know, 100 boxes of some horribly processed, you know, hamburger casserole product, whatever, you still give it out because it's food and people need food,
Yeah.
right?
Well, like people are going to eat it and not starve to death. So
right. So it's way better that the people didn't starve and they ate it, right? But how do we improve upon that is like I think an important question. And so there are projects out there that are asking that question of how do we improve upon that. And so again, at the Rio Grande Food Project, they have a community garden. They partner with the Sprouting Kitchen, who I work with on the side a little bit, who's run by this really cool chef Fallon. Shouts out to Fallon. You know, and so like at the Rio Grande Food Project, they're learning where food comes from. They're learning how to garden. They get to take plants home sometimes. Like they'll buy excess plants and then do plant giveaways.
wow.
So and stuff like that. I even got a couple peppers from them this year because I was just there on a day that they were giving plants away, and they were like, "Here, you take some too." I was like, "All right, fuck it." Like, I'm here to teach a class, and I'm gonna take some peppers home. It's a good deal for me, like, right, you know.
I'm just gonna say, if you ever grow your own ghost peppers, don't eat one whole. I made that mistake, and it was a 2-day scenario. I won't go into details, but just never do that.
I've actually grown scorpion peppers, so oh yeah, we got some real baddies out here. I was surprised too when I'm looking through the peppers they've got available, and like there's like 20 like scorpion peppers, and I was like, oh, I'll take some of those because I bet not everybody's gonna take these.
Not if they know what they are. I think are those hotter than, I think the hottest pepper is it the Scotch whatever, North Carolina something or other.
No, so the Carolina Reaper was the hottest pepper for several years, and the Scorpion was second behind it for a while, but now the Scorpion's like 5th.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the North Carolina Reaper, that's what it is, right? That's the hottest one I've had. And yeah, that's not an experiment I'll be repeating.
I do like Carolina Reapers for making hot sauce. Not for, you know, it's not for regular consumption, and it's not even for chopping up or throwing in a stir fry. That's still too crazy. But making you know, like a hot sauce out of them, I did that one time. I got a huge batch of Carolina Reapers from a friend. from a farming friend. And first of all, I want to be clear that I cooked this outside on what's called a rocket stove, if you're not familiar, which is like a high efficiency camping stove. And I have a particularly fancy one that I bought many years ago. Which you might go, oh, well, you have a fancy one. I bought it when I was rough living, so fuck you. But I have a particularly fancy one, and you know, I made this sauce outside. I was like, I'm not. If I do this in the house, I'm going to kill everyone.
Yes,
Like
yes.
everyone will die.
I think we all remember the first time that we thought, oh, why don't I fry up some peppers?
No.
And then immediately realized, no, that's not a thing you do.
Yeah, no, it's not. So yeah, the scorpion pepper is well, actually, okay, I guess it depends on which variety of scorpion pepper you're talking about. But the hottest pepper in the world is Pepper X, and then it's the Carolina Reaper. Or no, it might be the Dragon's Breath. That's right. It's the Welsh Dragon's Breath, but that one hasn't been verified. So we're still waiting on that one. Might be the second hottest. But Pepper X, that's the new hottest pepper in the world, which that's a perfect name for it, right?
I remember when like habanero peppers were hot. Now they're like candy compared to some of these other things.
Right. Yeah, habaneros are like, they're kind of middle of the road at best.
Yeah, but it's like it's all become this thing now to come out with these new hotter peppers.
Well, and
like where they're
literally competitive. It is literally competitive. The people that breed the hot peppers, they're competing with each other, and it's pretty wild, you know.
So but you know, like the ghost pepper, I think I like ghost peppers because they have a nice flavor with them too.
They have that rich, earthy, kind of chocolatey almost flavor to them. Yeah. It's really nice with certain dishes. I like that one a lot. I like the scorpion pepper. It has a very acidic bite to it. It's very bright. It's kind of tangerine-y or something. I like a lot of and Carolina Reapers do have a nice flavor, but it's hard to tell.
You know, I think like a lot of these peppers, it's more a matter of if you reduce, like you can put in just a small part of a Carolina Reaper into a pot of chili, make the whole pot of chili nice and spicy, but not like inedibly spicy.
Although one person will get a very special bite if you just throw it in as a little.
I wonder if I tried grating them, if that might work in terms of.
Yeah, get them real fine or something, or maybe blend it. But then again, anytime you do that, then you're creating aerosol, so you're in danger.
But but this actually, like going back to what we were talking about a little bit before, is just the lack of available good food. What about food deserts? And because I think that ties into a lot of policy too.
Yeah. So food deserts are an increasing problem in this country.
Can you explain what that means? Because I think some people
think
that it's just some sort of liberal thing that liberals say.
No, so and the important thing to understand about food deserts is that they have a complex reason why they exist. So what a food desert is basically like there are areas where it's really hard to buy groceries. That's the simplest way to put it, is that there's areas where it's very hard to buy groceries, especially if what you're looking for is like a variety of foods, fresh foods, healthy foods, things like that. There are areas where it is super challenging to get this. There might be like, an area where the only thing within like a half hour of their house is like a Family Dollar or something like that has really inadequate grocery options. Is not something that is like suitable for most people or most situations.
And these communities tend to be in lower income areas, right?
Working class communities, Black communities, Latino communities. There's certain communities that have been particularly affected by this in the United States.
And these people generally don't, because it's not economically viable, they don't have cars.
Right. So a lot of times these are communities where people are more reliant on the bus. They're more reliant on walking, biking. They're more reliant on ride shares and things like that. Things that also make grocery shopping more complicated. Of course, the most convenient way to grocery shop is to have a huge SUV and to drive it yourself directly to Costco and to fill it up with $10,000 worth of groceries and to come back and, but like, that's not what most of us can do, right?
Like the old joke, I saved $400 at Costco today by driving past it.
Right. And so like, since most of us can't necessarily do something like that, the rest of us have to compromise in some way, right? We don't necessarily have the giant SUV, or we have the big SUV, but it's shared amongst a bunch of family members, so you don't have access to it all the time. Or you have the big SUV, and because it's shared because it's shared amongst a bunch of family members.
That's easy.
It's always full of stuff. Right?
Right.
Like, or you have these different issues that you have when you have a real life situation, right? That isn't like an idyllic. We are an upper middle class or bourgeoisie type family that has 3, 4, 5 cars, a huge house, right? Like all these things that make some of these things simpler. If you're not living that kind of lifestyle, which again, most of us aren't, then it's a lot more complicated. If you are, taking a grocery cart on and off the bus, that is a more complicated situation, right? It takes.
And if you don't have a grocery cart, you're limited to like 2 bags.
Right. So it's like, there's just a lot of challenges for folks in these situations, and that's what food deserts are creating, is like an increasing amount of this challenge, and what it leads to is poorer health outcomes because they have access to increasingly worse food options. If there's no grocery store within 30 minutes of your house, but there's a McDonald's 10 minutes away, guess what you do a lot?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really bad. Like the amount of processed food you should be eating, according to the health experts, is none. And again, I'm not saying that like I eat no processed food, or I'm trying to make you feel ashamed here today. That's not my goal at all. But the health experts have said we shouldn't really eat any.
And you're distinguishing processed foods from minimally processed foods, right? Like
right.
Buying a jar of canned tomatoes is fine.
Right.
But living off of frozen burritos is not.
Right. And it's that thing you talked about of divorcing it from all of its original, like nutritional context, so to speak, which removes a lot of the nutritional value. And so, highly processed foods, we're talking about like, microwaved dinners that come out of a package. We're talking about the candy I'm eating right now, which again, I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to encourage you to think about how much better you'll feel when you take these steps, right? Because like, even though I like eating this candy, like if I eat too much of it, I'm going to feel like shit. I'm going to feel terrible. And I'd rather feel good. I'd rather feel like healthy, happy, like my body feels whole and like I have energy, right? Like have you noticed like changes like that since you've changed the way that you eat?
And I've noticed that my body will crave differently. Like instead of saying I could go for a soda right now, it'll go, I could go for a juice right now. And like, not by a juice, like, or a smoothie. I have a juicer and I make my own veggie juices. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, that if you can get a cold press juicer and just run a carrot, like they're super cheap, run a carrot and a stalk of celery through it, and like that can be so much healthier than a soda. But my body, like, it starts to recognize, not just I need calories, it starts to say I need nutrition, and so it starts to crave nutrition instead of calories.
Yeah, you can really teach your body, and again, you're also learning to listen to like your body more so than, again, those like burned in neurochemical pathways in your mind that just crave. Like, those aren't what you should be listening to. You should be listening to like your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your stomach, your vascular system. Like, these are the parts of your body that are asking for these things. Your vascular system right now is crying at you to drink a little more water, please.
Yeah.
And if you start to listen, you'll hear it. And again, you can hear that before you feel thirsty in your mouth, which, again, by the time your mouth feels thirst, you're in trouble.
And another thing about that is, like, for instance, like for me, I love rice, and one of the hardest things for me was transitioning from white rice to brown rice. And sometimes it's just like you need a paradigm shift. And I was like, I just like the taste of white rice better.
Yeah.
And then one day I realized, what brown rice tastes like is like, I was like, what does it taste like? And then it occurred to me, it tastes like rice. Like that's what rice tastes like. Is white rice doesn't taste like rice. Brown rice does taste like rice. And then once I kind of had that little paradigm shift, I started thinking, okay, brown rice is rice, white rice is like some other thing. And so I just started feeling more comfortable with brown rice, and then I started to like brown rice. So a lot of the foods that I always thought of as you need white rice for this, like red beans and rice, and like red beans and rice with brown rice is actually really, really, really good. That the nuttiness of the rice complements the bean flavor a lot better, and so it's like it's not tasting like I expect it to, but it tastes like it should taste. And then it was just like, anyway, it's a mental transition, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying at the beginning about just being comfortable with food. Like once you start to have a relationship and know food, you start to adjust what your expectations are from it.
Right. And it's just a matter of developing those new comforts and getting your taste buds to change. I forget, but it's like, we always hear that thing of like, oh, every 7 years your taste buds have completely changed. That's actually like kind of a goofy half truth that doesn't have a lot of value to it. But what's even more shocking that is true is you can get your mouth used to a new flavor in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so if you have something like that, like the brown rice situation, if you just ate brown rice regularly for 2 weeks, you probably get over it in most cases. Like, and there are cases where you have a true food aversion, like I have an aversion to the herb sage. To me, it literally smells and tastes like mold. It's like the strangest thing. It's something's wired wrong in my brain, and I don't think I can get past that one. I've tried eating sage my whole life and I just don't like it.
I know some people have that with like cilantro, to where they, like, like I have like a texture thing with certain, like, I love bell peppers and onions, but like raw onions and bell peppers, I just can't do it. Like I literally can't swallow it without a gag reflex.
Yeah. So
like I'm fine with it.
There's some aversions you may not be able to get past in your life. And the goal of being like a well-rounded person with regards to food, health, and nutrition is not to eat everything. I think that's also like a false perception people get sometimes, is like, if I want to love food, I have to love food like one of these TV personalities that will eat like a live octopus tentacle on television or whatever, like, no, you don't. You don't have to eat stuff that scares the poop out of you. You don't have to like push yourself crazy far out of your comfort zone. You don't have to make yourself super uncomfortable all the time. But what you can do is take little steps like that, where it's like you already liked white rice. Surely you could also like brown rice, right? Like it's not that far removed from something you already eat, you know? And you just had to take the steps of like eating it enough and kind of convincing your brain, like, hey, just keep processing this, keep chewing on this, so to speak, right?
Yeah. It's like so I like and like I like bread. So then I started making my own bread because like Wonder Bread sucks.
Right.
Then I started making my own bread with whole wheat flour. Then I started making my own bread with fresh ground wheat flour. And then now I'm making bread with like sprouted wheat that I grind
Yep.
myself. And so it's like sometimes it's just a matter of taking a step at a time. You don't have to jump straight into like full-fledged organic sprouted whatever everything. It's like
Right.
just like and as you take each step, you find yourself more and more in love with the actual food and the process of making your food. And like sometimes it's almost like I enjoy the cooking more than the eating.
Yeah, totally. And it really is something it's easy to become passionate about. And I do some very ambitious food things at home. Like I cure my own meats sometimes. I haven't done that in a little while because I had to kind of rearrange my setup. But I'm hoping to start another batch soon, some point here. But I cure my own meats. And people will sometimes ask me, how did you get into that? Did you like study under an expert or something? And it's like, no, I just started with just like doing like salt preserved food stuff in general. And then I decided one time I wanted to try gravlax, which is where you salt cure salmon. If you've ever had lox on a bagel, that's the same thing. And it turned out that it was really easy to make. Like,
here's one of my favorite puns, since it is the pun show. How do
Yeah.
you keep people from stealing your bagel?
oh,
Put
how?
locks in it.
It's a good one. Yeah. That's great.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, making lox turned out was really easy. You just like takes like a couple of days in the fridge. It's really not intimidating. And after that, I was like, what else could I make like this?
You know what? Like everybody should try making their own bacon one time.
Oh
It's
yeah.
actually pretty easy, and it's like a different level of bacon.
Yeah, that was also like something I tried earlier in the process as well. And so then I started, okay, how do you like dry cure meats? How do you, and so I set up I got a wine and beer fridge for free from a friend.
Oh,
And I set it to the correct temperature, which it could naturally just do. And I put in a humidification system, just very simply, just with off the shelf stuff, nothing complicated. And I started curing meat. And overall, I've been very successful. The thing I've had the toughest time with is sometimes working with ground meat is more challenging. It's a lot more vector for contamination, but the whole cut stuff is so easy. Like you just take like a whole pork loin and hang it for 60 days. And, you do a bunch of prepping stuff to it first, of course, but it's really easy.
If people ask you how you learned to cure meat, just tell them you went to meat medical school.
Right. But seriously, it's one of those things that whenever I tell people, yeah, I cure my own meat, they're like, whoa. And like, I met this guy once that was like, he had like gone to study, meat curing in New York City under an Italian meat curing master or whatever. And we get to talking about meat curing. And he's like, where did you learn all this? You seem to know as much as me. And I'm like, I just taught myself.
I love that, because I think that is like, there's so much about like, and this is you can learn a lot of stupid stuff on YouTube, like about how COVID isn't real or whatever. But,
Right.
there's a lot of good stuff you can like YouTube videos. Like you get into some of these niche things like curing meat or making your own cheeses or like sprouting and fermenting, and you just get like random Bob that has been doing this for 30 years and tells you, okay, you do this, you do this, and like, and then you're like, oh, this doesn't actually sound that hard, and like a lot of these things, like making your own sauerkraut takes like 10 minutes, I
Yep.
mean, and it's like so much healthier, and like just the even for sauerkraut, like the jarred sauerkraut and stuff, it's still got great probiotics in it, but your home fermented stuff is going to have like 10 times the stuff, and it's going to taste better, and you know and like I don't know if you've ever tried. Do you do any fermenting or?
Yeah, I actually just made radish water kimchi a couple weeks
Oh,
ago, and yeah, I'm super into all that as well. And like you were saying about like the kefir, like any one of these like probiotic things that you make at home is going to have like more pre, pro, and postbiotics than almost any product you can buy at the store. So I am a big fan of all those. Also, you ever made ginger ale the old fashioned way?
no, I haven't. I've thought about it. My wife has encouraged it, but I haven't gotten.
Strongly
How do you get
recommend that one as well.
like
But
how do
you
you
have to be
carbonate
careful
it?
with that one because it naturally carbonates because it ferments. So
Oh,
you
so it's like beer.
yeah, so you can make something what you make what's called it's called a ginger bug. Look this up, folks, if you want to try this. That's the term that you'll want to search. It's called a ginger bug, and it's like a sourdough starter, but you make it or it's similar
Oh,
to a sourdough starter, but you make it with ginger, and you get this culture going with ginger, and then you use that culture to make the ginger ale. Um, and it's super easy and it naturally ferments and it becomes effervescent all on its own.
see, and this is what I love about the conversation we're having is that if you like a food and you can just start getting into figuring out how to do it, like yogurt or kefir or ginger ale or meats or cheeses or like different fermented foods, or I like to do sprouting. um Sprouting
Yeah.
is like just incredibly nutritious, and sprouted grains and milling,
Yep.
and like I mill barley and rice and all kinds of different flours, and it's like once you start on the journey, it's like whole worlds of food that you never even imagined start opening up to you.
Yeah. No, there's just so much out there. And one of the things that I've loved about food is that, there's been other things, skills in my life that I've felt like I kind of either mastered right away or I could see where mastery was within that skill right away. But food is something where there's always more frontiers. I'll never learn all there is to know about food in
Oh,
this life. It's no possible way, as much as I know about meat curing, I could keep studying that for 10 more years, I'm sure, at least. There's so many things like that I could, I'd love to study. I've just started to dabble in the last couple of years of cheese making. I'm not good at it yet. It's super hard. I'm super excited about it. I want to learn to make like challenging cheeses. I already have curing fridges, so I could cure like a Parmesan for 10 months or
wow.
something, so uh you know pretty pretty fun stuff to explore, but like it's just the sort of thing that like it's not easy to get it, it's like I could spend probably 20-30 years just mastering cheese,
Yeah.
right?
And some stuff, like you need to get you had the fridge donated to you, but like a lot of these things, like fermenting, is you can get into fermenting for like free, basically. Like all you need is a ball jar
yeah, you
or
need
a
a couple of
jar,
jars, you
you
need
know
not much else, you know.
Just the next time you empty out your mayonnaise, just rinse out the jar and use that. Like well, you want to use glass.
Yeah,
Um,
if it's a glass jar. Yeah.
but like these are not like there's a lot of this stuff is sprouting is cheap to get into, fermenting is cheap to get into, and these things do not take a lot of work or a lot of time, but they provide a huge health benefit.
And
And it's like once you start on the journey, you're like, oh, this is a fun thing to do. I like doing this,
and
and I like eating it.
food scarcity is coming for us too. You know, it's coming, just because like, I'm not currently on SNAP benefits at this time in my life, doesn't mean that like I'm not going to experience some of the effects of these things that are facing all of us in certain ways, right? So like this food scarcity stuff is going to affect us all in certain ways, and so food preservation so important right now. I think we come back to like how does this tie into our politics? Food preservation is so important for our current political situation and for all of our health, well-being, and betterment moving through this current political environment. And just the ability to do things like ferment foods, dehydrate foods, can foods. These are all things that are meaningful in this
And
time.
canning is not like people always think, oh, you got to get the pressure cooker, and and they're afraid of pressure cookers. They come with safety equipment now. It's almost impossible to blow it up. Canning is so easy.
It's easy. It's safer than people think. And it's just really like, you want to talk about like the ability to have relatively fresh tasting produce for years after it was picked. You can't beat canning for stuff like that. And again, this is just stuff that like when we're talking about, people on the front lines of protest movements too, these canned goods can make a difference. I talked about Standing Rock earlier, in part because at the time I was living in North Carolina on a farm, and we sent produce to Standing Rock from North Carolina. There were people sending food from all over the country to Standing Rock to support those protesters. And like, these are the kinds of things that I think a lot of people don't even think about right now. And again, it's because they don't have a great relationship to food. So how could they think of something like that? But if you improve your relationship to food, it could have all these rippling benefits to the political changes that you want to see. Because again, like the next time you see a really big protest somewhere and it's a couple hours away from you and you like, I wish I could be there, send them a box of food.
I just love that. That is something I'm going to start doing that. That's such a great idea. Because I have like long COVID. I already got COVID. I have one lung. If I get COVID again, I'm going to die. Yeah. I have to avoid crowds. And so I haven't gone to protest, but in my heart. But that's such a great idea. Like I've thought about how could I participate? And that's such a great way to participate without having to risk my life.
Yeah. It's just food and water is so important for our protesters. And obviously water is pretty simple in terms of like, you just buy some bottles of water. That's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot more to say. I mean, we could talk a little about where water comes from and ions and stuff, but I'm not even sure what I believe in regards to that stuff, really. I think water is water for the most part. Like, I think it's great if your water doesn't have a ton of chemicals in it, obviously, but I think other than that, water is water for the most part. But the food part's more complicated. Like we said, it's not as straightforward. Like, what foods do you even send to a protest? I think the fact that, just to encourage you, but also, any listeners out there that might find themselves in similar situations, I think the fact that you have so many tools for food preservation and you understand them is actually, that's very valuable to the protest movements. And you didn't even know it until just now.
Yeah, no, I thank you. Like you opened up a world for me. So yeah, as we're talking, I just have this question for you. If somebody just asks you, what do you think about food? And I think like a lot of people, their first thoughts are going to be eating it.
Sure.
And I just like, as we're talking, like I never consciously thought of it. My first thought, somebody says, what do you think about food? I think about making it.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with, like coming back to that whole comfort thing. Once you're comfortable with it, you start kind of falling in love with it, and not just eating it. Eating it, trust me, I love eating food.
Of course.
Like yesterday, so a couple of days ago, I had some I was gonna make some chili from sprouted beans, and this was my first time trying this. And I was like, man, I should make some cornbread to go with it. But I looked, and my cornmeal and a bug had gotten into my cornmeal. I'm like, oh, that's no good.
Bummer.
And so I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? So I open up my freezer, and I've got this super sweet corn, a bag of super sweet corn, frozen sweet corn. I'm like, I know what I'm gonna do. So I dehydrated that. I decided, okay, I'll just make my chili tomorrow. I dehydrated that, and then I milled the corn into corn flour.
Love it.
Or to cornmeal, and then I made cornbread out of the super sweet cornbread. This cornbread is like, I know people say this kind of stuff. Easily the best cornbread I've ever had in my life. Like,
Oh,
because
I bet.
it was so good. And so then yesterday, so that was 2 days ago, I made the cornbread. Yesterday, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, oh, I want something sweet to eat, but I don't buy pies and stuff anymore from the grocery store. I do buy ice cream. So I had an idea, and what I did is I took a piece of the cornbread, and I put some vanilla ice cream on top of that.
Oh, yum.
And then I had some I dehydrated these apple slices with brown sugar and cinnamon on them to like make an apple pie kind of treat.
Yeah.
So I crumbled up some of those and put those on top of it. And then I put some homemade caramel sauce on top of that. And I mean, it was like there was an absolute party in my mouth. It was my taste buds were the happiest taste buds ever. Like it was so good. And it's like I love the food, but like each of those individual parts, I was just from being comfortable with food and enjoying the process of making food, like to make the apple pie slices. And so then I can just have this kind of spontaneous dessert that's super yummy.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll like this. Where I really come from, whenever I think about food, my number one thought is, where did it come from? I really think a lot about like the origin of everything that I'm eating, cooking, looking at, and what that means for it. And I think like that's something that, we help the kids in the program that I work with to understand better. But it's something that I'd really love to encourage everyone to think about more. Is like, where does your food come from?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like tempting to think of it all as coming from like anonymous gray buildings, but it's not that simple.
Yeah. They're coming out with these apps. I don't know if they're out yet or not, or where it's at, but like where they'll have a QR code that comes on like with your avocados. And then you can scan it, and it will tell you where it was harvested.
Yeah.
And it will tell you who harvested it. Like Juan harvested this. And then you can even give Juan like 50 cents or whatever. Thanks for harvesting my avocados.
Yeah, I think that's kind of neat to tie that stuff together and make people really understand, like, where does food come from? I think that's so crucial. It's definitely, like I said, something I think about all the time. I try to buy tons of local food or relatively local food. I buy most of my meat from a local meat market and stuff like that. And it's not just because it's good, it's actually because it's affordable. I think people don't always realize that. They think local food has to be expensive because one time you walked into that like fancy food, that bougie grocery store near the college or whatever, and you saw some local produce and it was $9 for a tiny carton of blackberries, and you're going, what the heck? I think like a lot of people like they think of something like that when they think of local food. They don't realize that like some of the best deals on food in your community might be local, and that you just don't know where they are right now. This kind of comes back though to like the food desert problem, where like we've disconnected people so far from the sources of food that like it becomes this increasing issue where not only are you physically is it physically harder for you to get food, but then like because you're getting less education about food and stuff like that, it's also like mentally and emotionally harder for you to find these sources of good, affordable food. And I'm surprised all the time, even though this local meat market I go to all the time is always busy, super. In fact, they just expanded recently because they've been so busy for so long, and they were like, okay, we have to have more counter space. Even though it's so busy all the time, I talk to people all the time that have never heard of it. And this is 100% an institution of our community that is providing great meat at affordable prices. And I'll shout them out, actually. Nelson's Meat Market. If you're ever in Albuquerque, hit them up.
And for those that aren't in Albuquerque, check your, like, there's usually Facebook groups and Nextdoor groups that are, you know, kind of like into these sorts of things. And so you can find out where to go for, you know, like a farmer's market or whatever near you, unless you're like in Brooklyn or something, you know, like, but just go ahead and look around on Facebook or Nextdoor, you know, like your social media neighborhood apps that you know, like, will tell you, oh, okay, you know, there's this. I have a food market 2 blocks from my house once a week that I go to.
Well, and also something else I want to encourage everyone to start to discover is that some of the best food in your community is in a legally gray area where they can't necessarily sell it to a grocery store, but they can sell it to you. This is true of a lot of farm fresh meat and produce. And so they cannot sell it to the grocery store. You can't therefore buy it at the grocery store, right? But
How
they
come they can't sell it at the grocery store?
So a good example of like, so there's a lot of different specific regulations that cause this, but a good example would be like, for example, a lot of states allow some meat processing within the state that's not USDA certified. Like my state has a state level certification that you can get instead. And if you don't have USDA certification, then you can't sell the meat outside of the state, and you can't sell it at some grocery stores, even if you have this state certification. Now they're working on making the state certification more powerful and robust here in New Mexico, but it varies from state to state how this stuff works. And so in most cases, you've got meat farmers in your community that have processed meat that they're allowed to sell to you, but not to a store because it does not have a USDA label on it. But it was safely processed by a professional in a facility, and it's perfectly safe to eat. It's just not going to have a USDA sticker on it like most of the meat that you buy does. But because it does not have that USDA sticker, it can't be sold in most grocery stores. It can't be sold in a lot of settings as a result of that. It can't even necessarily be sold at your farmer's market, depending on your state rules. In some cases, like you may have to go to their farm to get some of this stuff in some cases, and it's still legal for them to sell it to you, but just only there. And so the rules are like this a lot for a lot of different things. This can affect eggs. This can affect produce. This can affect cheese. This can affect milk. It's going to affect a lot of different things that you might want to buy from a local farmer, right? Don't we all love delicious local cheese? You know, well, the best local cheese that you can buy cannot be sold in the grocery store. It's not legal. So, how do you get it? You've got to figure out who are your farmers. You've got to develop a connection with the food production systems in your community. I guarantee that pretty much wherever you live, there's farmers. Maybe if you live in New York City, it's a little more complicated, but pretty much wherever you live, even if you live in a big city, if you live in Chicago, you might think, are there farmers here? There's farmers. You live in Detroit, you might think are there farmers here? There's tons of farmers. You
just have to go a little bit outside the city. Like they're not
actually in Detroit, you don't even you don't even have to go outside the city. Right? In Detroit, you don't even have to go outside the city because Detroit has the highest density of urban farms in the country. And a lot of people even living in Detroit don't know that.
Wow. And, you know, like just to, like when it comes to like high quality meat, if you have the ability to get like a second freezer,
Oh yeah.
and buy like you don't have to buy like a whole cow. You can get like a half side for like $1,000, and it comes out to like $5 a pound. For and that'll be like there'll be a lot of ground beef in there, but there'll also be like premium steaks
Yep.
and so like it ends up being really really cost efficient to just like buy a half. Like we've done this, buy a half pound a half side of beef can last you like a year. So like if you think and with some really high quality cuts in there like briskets and steaks and whatnot, and you can kind of tell them what you want, and you can
Yep.
ask them, I want, give me the fat, and then you can make your own what's the can't think of the word, the not lard, but
Oh, tallow.
tallow, that's the
Yeah,
word.
you can render tallow,
And you
which
can
is so
keep the
great.
bones and make your own bone stock. And
Hmm.
like all of these things are, if you once you start going down the nerd road, you can totally get into a food nerd and make all of this stuff yourself. And it's like so much, you can end up saving so much money just buying a half side of beef and freezing it.
Yep. And I think, I know we're approaching 2 hours. So I think a great kind of final-ish thought here that I can give is that, people all the time, they look at pictures. I'll post pictures of my food that I'm making on the internet, and they'll assume that I must make $250,000 a year to be eating like that, or, something. I don't, y'all. I make a very normal income. um, I live basically paycheck to paycheck like most folks. I am not in any special financial position. And the food that I make and that me and my partner and my friends and my family and these, all the folks in my life that we make together and then you see pictures of online, it's not made with tons of money. It's made with tons of love and attention and
Yeah.
understanding and things like that. And so when you know where to get the great ingredients at the great prices, when you're comfortable in your kitchen, when you're comfortable with different kinds of kitchen tools, when you've taken the time to invest in worthwhile kitchen tools because you understand the value that they'll give you, like MPK said earlier, if you think you're going to throw away $80 worth of produce this year, buy a vacuum sealer.
Right. Right.
Like these kinds of all these tools.
And even if you don't like, a lot of people buy these tools like pressure cookers and dehydrators and canners and like that kind of thing. They use them for 2 weeks and then they stop using them, and then 5 years later they take them to the thrift store and donate them. If there's a secondhand store near you and you're just like kind of like would like to try getting into some of this, but I don't have the money to buy all these equipment, go to your thrift store and I bet you can find all kinds of appliances like that are almost free.
Yeah, I see all kinds of great kitchen appliances at the thrift store all the time. Immersion blenders for $5 I've seen, and you have to, if you want the good stuff, it's not like you're gonna go to the thrift store one time. You're gonna have to work the thrift store routine into your lifestyle a little bit if you really want to find the good stuff. But
And a lot of times what I'll do is like, okay, I think this might be interesting to me, but I'm not sure. I'll go to the thrift store, I'll find the thing, and then I'll be like, okay, am I actually using it? Like this is what I did with my juicing. Like
right.
first I just bought a cheap juicer from the thrift store, and then I tried juicing for all. I'm like, I'm getting into this. So then I bought like a premium juicer once I
Right.
knew I was going to be doing it. So it's also a great stepping stone.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to just take advantage of that kind of stuff, and I think it's totally there's always good kitchen appliances at the thrift stores. Go hit your thrift stores up. The kitchen appliances aren't being resold on eBay in general. These are not like high demand items compared to some of the other stuff at your local thrift store. And so usually like I'll see like $100 food processor for $10 all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I'll see $50
Blenders.
blender for $3.
Yeah.
I'm not just making these numbers up. These are real, So if you're out there and you're thinking, how do I get more into food? The thrift store is a great place to start. And another thing that you can find great at the thrift store is really good knives. And the only thing about them is they'll pretty much always be dull. And so if you take the interest
Kind of
in
like a
learning,
MAGA.
right? If you take an
You can
interest in
sharpen a knife, you can't sharpen a MAGA.
yeah, you can't sharpen a MAGA. No, I've tried rubbing them against a stone. Nothing. They just get mad. But yeah, if you can learn to sharpen knives, this is another one of like, and MPK, we'll probably have to do a part 2 to this someday because there's so much more that we could say. But this is just another one of those types of skills that like you learn to sharpen knives, and then suddenly you can go to the thrift store and buy $200 knives for $1 because they're in bad shape, and then you can fix them up.
I was watching a cooking show back when they had cooking shows. I don't remember who it was, but one chef said the most important utensil in your kitchen is a good knife.
It's so true. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we're almost at the 2-hour mark. Do you have like a site you'd like to pitch? Is there some place people can go and donate towards?
Yeah, well,
Kids Cook.
Yeah, let me shout that out if you don't mind. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you again for having me on for this lengthy discussion. I really appreciate the chance to expound about this stuff. I think it's so important. If you've thought that this work sounds important while you're here watching / listening today, then you can go to kidscook.us/donate and give money right now. You could also go to kidscook.us/letter-2025 if you want to read the letter from our executive director about what's going on and what we hope to do to save this program. We really hope to keep this program going for many years to come. Kids Cook has survived funding crises in the past, but it is unfortunate because we thought we were going to be in 17 schools this year, and now we're in 9. So this is the dramatic impact of these cuts. Every donation helps us to get to start to bring that number back up so that we can be in more schools again, more community centers, work with more organizations, work with more groups in need and things like that, like we have been doing for years successfully and to great effect. And if you go on our website right now, you can find some incredible stories from folks who have been through the program in different formats, and as well as on our social media and other places. So and there's a lot more of that stuff coming. I'm really working on getting a lot more of the great stories highly visible. That's something that we've struggled with in the past, and now with our current crisis, obviously it's at the forefront. So we're going to make sure that we're just continuing to tell those stories, because that's what it's all about.
And what's your at on Blue Sky?
I'm at kennedytcooper.bsky.social.
So we'll put the links to that and the website in the description for the video here. And I really appreciate you coming on. This is just, I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. I don't get to talk about food as much as I want to without like putting people to sleep. I love food anyway. And it just really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about all this. It's very important.